Primetime Fantasy Football is brought to you by Next Level Radio. Head to nextlevelradioonline.com for past episodes of Primetime Fantasy Football and the Showcast, plus celebrity guest spotlight. Now on to this week's Primetime Fantasy Football.
People I never thought about associating with. I don't know what it is. Talk to me. Check it out. Hey, front of acres with a mansion on my land. Full jacuzzis and my neighbors can't stand. The way I live is oh so fast. Ain't got your ladies and prime time is all that.
Whoa, Dion. It's not that kind of prime time.
Yeah, man, it's Primetime Fantasy Football on Next Level Radio.
Well, alright. Yeah.
Welcome into the Week 12 episode of Primetime Fantasy Football, brought to you by Next Level Radio. I am one of your hosts, Adam Gorey, joined by, let's start off asking Joe Webster. Joe, how you doing tonight?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. Steve Richards is also joining us. Steve, how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Perfect. We are recording this, by the way, Wednesday night around 8 o'clock Eastern time. So any news that comes out after that, unfortunately, we most likely will not have covered unless, it happens while we're recording. So anyway, let's start off by just reminding you to help out Next Level Radio. Go to represent.com/nextlevel and buy yourself a pretty sweet Next Level t-shirt. Comes in a variety of colors. I know Steve has already purchased a couple. I'll be getting a couple. Help us out. That keeps us going for 2015. Our goal is 25. We'd love to surpass that. If you need the link, go to facebook.com/nextlevelradio online or our Twitter at NXT Level Radio. You can just click it and retweet it, share it, like it, favorite it, whatever other options you have, comment on it, I guess. But other than that, let's get right into things. We will start off, as we always do, with the high and lows. First off, let's recap last week's highs, Week 11 results. I had Mark Ingram. He only had 9.7 points. So that's a yellow. For Mark Ingram, that's, how he's been doing, that's almost a red. 23 carries, 67 yards. He also had 7 catches somehow for 30 yards. They play the Ravens on Monday night. Are either of you worried at all about this Mark Ingram, a little bit of a hiccup? Personally, I'll quick give my opinion, then we'll go to Joe. I'm still okay with him. I think he's still probably a low-end running back one against the Ravens. I think they have a pretty solid defense. So, Joe, what's your opinion on Ingram this week?
The thing I like about him is he's still getting the work. 23 carries last week, and he still had 7 receptions. So 30 touches is great. So I know it wasn't the production you were looking for, but as long as the other guys are out, like Pierre Thomas and the other guy I'm forgetting right now, Robinson, I think he's still going to get all those touches. And right now, the way running backs are, if you've got somebody who's getting 30 touches a game, he's going to be in your lineup.
Yeah, Ravens at the bottom of the league, so it is a tough matchup for him. Steve, what about you?
I think if you have Mark Ingram, you're starting Mark Ingram just because of how he's been in the past couple weeks. And like Joe said, 30 touches is good. He just, for whatever reason, couldn't get it going. But they like him as their running back, which is a change of pace for the Saints. We've been saying that all year, but it's always good to have him going, and you're going to have him going. So
yeah, exactly. Next up, I had a red on Brandon LaFell. He had 3 catches on 4 targets for 62 yards, so decent yardage night. Just didn't get the touchdown. Wasn't quite as much of a shootout as we thought. Jonas Gray getting 4 touchdowns. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But let's talk about Brandon LaFell going up against that stout Lions defense this week. I might, if I have better options this week, just because it's a tough matchup, I might find him. But I still have no problem putting him in there. I think he's a solid wide receiver too, week in and week out. I just think this week it's probably a low end instead of a high end. Joe, what are your feelings on LaFell?
I actually kind of like him, and one of my highs that I have this week, and I'll kind of talk about why, but I think the Patriots are really going to struggle to run the ball against a really good Detroit Lions team. So I think the Patriots are going to pass a lot, and I think LaFell could be a huge benefactor of the passing game.
Yeah, I could agree with that. They, like you said, Jonas Gray ended up with 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Tom Brady only completed 19 or 20 passes. LaFell caught 3 of them. I guess it was targeted 4 times, and they just didn't throw it that much. So it's kind of a weird game, but they should get back to putting the ball in Brady's hands, and LaFell is a direct benefactor of that.
Yeah, and I think, and I had, luckily in the league, I faced both Gronkowski and Graham, two tight ends who generally, you count on for about 15 points or so. Both of them having kind of quiet weeks, and I think both of them explode for pretty good weeks this coming week. Would either of you disagree with one of those two guys?
It's tough to disagree with either one of them at the tight end position, considering how terrible the tight end position's been this year. So
That's a good point.
You can't really talk about them in a negative light. It's kind of pointless to say how well or poorly you think they're going to do because you're going to play them both.
Well, let's talk about your flops on the highs, Steve.
Oh, sure. I had Ryan Matthews. He ended up with 16 carries for 70 yards. He had another catch for 5 yards, but he didn't do anything other than that. So that adds up to 7.5 points. I actually thought he got hurt, but then I looked it up, and I guess he didn't. But
no, they gave Oliver a lot of carries in that game, oddly.
Yeah. So I guess they did ease him back, which I thought that they weren't going to do. But since they did, that earns a red. This week they're back in San Diego against the St. Louis Rams. So, Joe, go ahead and start us off. What do you think about Ryan Matthews this week?
Yeah, because of what I saw the Rams defense was able to do last week against Denver, I'm pretty low on Ryan Matthews right now. Hope he's been out for long enough that hopefully you still roster a couple of running backs that have better matchups. But obviously, you have to get him in your lineup. That may be something you have to do. But I would not have him on any of my high lists this week.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. I mean, he ran pretty well, 4.4 per carry. Like I said, he got 16 carries. Oliver got 13. I think you see him I think he separates himself a little more from Oliver this week. So the only thing that worries me with him is you're probably going to get pretty similar production out of him against the Rams just because it is a tougher defense and he's not their goal line guy. You've seen them use various other people in the goal line, even like Oliver around the goal line. I don't know if it's because he's shifty or what, but so I mean, you could see something very similar, and he puts up good yardage, maybe adds a couple more catches, but doesn't get that touchdown, so you're stuck around like the 9-10 point range. So I mean, he's still a good option, a good flex option if you have him. If you're patient on him, but I'm not expecting RB1 numbers from him anytime in the next couple weeks.
I actually like him this week. I think that they'll continue to give him more work and continue to ease him in, which I think continues to grow his role. Kind of what Adam alluded at. I think he goes over 20 touches this week, and he, like you said, he's productive when he gets it. So I think it could turn into more points, and if he gets into the end zone, that's just a bonus. And then my other guy that I missed on.
Real quick, Steve, before we get on to Matt Ryan, I forgot to mention this. Do you guys want a quick mention, because we don't have him on any list, Phillip Rivers? Are either of you a little panicky about Phillip Rivers? He had two bad games in a row now, and you would have thought against the Raiders he would have been able to recover Raiders at home. So are either of you maybe looking for other options than Rivers if you have him as your quarterback?
I think you have to be. I mean, I think he's dealing with I think the term they're using is severely bruised ribs, and his schedule does not get a whole lot easier anymore. So I think that's it. You've got to be a little concerned, especially at the beginning of the year. You probably thought you had a steal in the draft, and he's going to be quarterback one the rest of the way. But if you're preparing for your fantasy playoffs, hopefully you have another option that you can maybe stream throughout the playoffs, because I don't know if I trust him as my only quarterback.
Yeah, I never worry about Phillip. That's just what I am and where I stand on Phillip Rivers, because I think he's cool. But I guess fantasy-wise, that doesn't work. So there's probably better options. Maybe if a guy like McCown is out there, like Joe mentioned, a possible streaming option. If you could find a guy that has some better matchups going into the later weeks of the year, that's when you start looking at it when you're headed down the stretch running into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a little leaning more towards Steve's boat, and that might also because I think he's hilarious when I watch him play football.
Bolo tie.
But, you know, I kind of want to see how he does this week. You know, maybe I pick a guy up this week like McCown or somebody else, but I don't know that I'd pull the trigger. I know McCown has a good matchup, but I don't know that I'd pull the trigger and actually bench Rivers just yet. I want to see a little bit. And they're denying that he has that rib injury. They're saying he hurt his chest in the game. They're denying that he has a rib injury. So, I mean, whether that's true or not, but all right. So let's sorry to interrupt before there, Steve, but I'll let you get on to Matt Ryan now.
That's good. Yeah, speaking of quarterbacks, the other guy that I missed on for my highs last week was Matt Ryan. I ended up with 268 passing yards with a touchdown for little over 15 points. So it was not good last week. And this week he has the Browns. They are at home, back in the Dome against the Browns. So what do you guys think with Matt Ryan? Go ahead and start us off, Adam.
I don't like him at all. I've kind of been saying it a little bit, Pat, and I know last week when you had put him on your high list, I wasn't quite on board. At this point, I would do what Joe wants to do with Phillip Rivers and find another option. I would see if I could pick up like a Josh McCown and plug him right in and put Matt Ryan on my bench. Even like I know Joe was talking a few weeks ago, I think, about putting in Palmer over Matt Ryan, and then when Palmer got hurt, Stanton comes in. I almost would think Stanton over Matt Ryan at this point, depending on matchup.
Yeah, I think the problem is because I have this problem in the league. I was a Matt Ryan and Palmer owner, so right now I only have Matt Ryan, and I'm looking at the fantasy playoffs of who I should have as my second quarterback, and possibly my starting quarterback. But there's a lot of quarterbacks that are left on the waiver wire, like Stanton, like Hoyer, couple other guys, even McCown, that don't have the best matchups, and I almost just feel like Matt Ryan, I feel like, is due for a good game. I don't feel like this game coming up is going to be it. I kind of feel like, and I'm going to talk about, because I have one of his wide receivers on my low list, why I think Matt Ryan, we're pretty much going to see somewhere around the 250 to 300 passing yards each game with a touchdown, and if you get lucky, you'll get that second touchdown out of him to get you over 20 points. But unfortunately, I think 15 to 18 points is what to expect from him right now in the standard league.
Yeah, especially this week. The matchup just isn't good this week. There's certainly other options that are out there that you might be able to find either off the waiver wire or make a quick trade with it being trade week in the fantasy leagues. So I think there's definitely better options than Matt Ryan this week. And if you have him, you should probably be looking elsewhere.
Yeah, and speaking of trades, we'll talk Steve came up with a great idea to talk about some buy low, sell high candidates, so we'll get into that after we go through all our picks. Joe, so what about your highs last week? You fared a little bit better than Steve or I.
Yeah, Jeremy Hill, just because he had 27 carries, 152 yards, didn't get a touchdown, but the carries were there, which was a really good thing. So 16.5 points in a standard league. So I thought that was a really good day. I think right now some of the talk that I'm reading from some of the beat writers there is that Hill's just deserved the carry. So even with Bernard expected to play this week, I think a lot of the beat writers in Cincinnati are expecting Hill to still get the lion's share of the carries, although I think Gio is definitely going to eat into that. So I'm not expecting 27 carries out of him, but it would not surprise me if Hill has more carries going forward in the next week or two. So they play the Texans this week. I didn't put him on a high list, but I know in the leagues that I have him, I'm still keeping him in my lineup because I'm still expecting somewhere in the 15 to 18 carries. And 2 out of the 3 weeks, he's rushed for about 150 yards. So I think he's earned the chance to be the starting running back, at least for the time being. Adam, what's your thoughts on Jeremy Hill?
I like him. Like you said, when Gio comes back, I think he's going to earn a split of the share. So I think at this point he's like a flex going forward, and I think the Texans is a pretty good matchup for him. I could see him maybe, obviously not getting 27 carries if Gio comes back, but I could see him still doing pretty well.
Yeah, he averages just under 5 yards a carry for the whole year, so that's certainly good production. So as long as he keeps getting those carries, and I agree with you, Joe, that I think he will get them as they ease Gio Bernard back in, then certainly for the next couple weeks, he's worth starting and having in your lineup. So no matter who they're playing.
Yeah, and just a little fact that I found out today that I was really surprised about Jeremy Hill and how productive he actually has been this season. How many rushing yards behind Eddie Lacy is Jeremy Hill right now?
Probably not many because Lacy doesn't get many yards. 100.
Steve?
Is this from Eddie Lacy's rookie season or this year?
No, this year.
75?
You're both wrong. It was a trick question. He has more rushing yards this year than Eddie Lacy. So I just found that funny just because he hasn't been the starter up until the last 3 weeks, and he's actually has more rushing yards. So, but Adam, you were on the right track about him not having many. So the other guy who I got a yellow light on, so not exactly the best, was John Brown, 5 receptions, 69 yards. However, those 5 receptions did lead the team, and so did his 9 targets. So it wasn't for lack of trying to get him the ball, but Michael Floyd was the guy that benefited. He had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and I'm not sure if he saw another pass the rest of the game. But going forward, I still like John Brown a lot. This week, however, against the Seahawks, I was able to pick him up in a bunch of my leagues, and I'm a big fan of his right now. Him and Stanton seem to really have a good chemistry, but he will be on my bench in all of my leagues this week. I just don't like his matchup against the Seahawks. But long-term going forward, I still have John Brown rest of season ahead of Michael Floyd. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, Seahawks giving up the least amount of points to fantasy wide receivers this year so far. I agree, although I will say if you are desperate, there are worse options out there for like a flex or something like that. And we'll talk about Michael Floyd a little bit later. But like you said, moving forward, I'm okay with him. This week it is a tough matchup, but honestly, if anyone's going to do well on that team, I think it would be him this week. So he's a speedster. If you've seen him, I know watching against the Eagles, we've seen him beat them. So honestly, the Seahawks defense is not, it's not what it used to be. It's still a very solid defense, obviously. Passing wise, you saw what they did on the ground, but no, I think you could see similar numbers to what you saw last week. But if he adds that touchdown, then there you go.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, most of his damage comes when he beats a team deep. So all it takes is one deep pass, and all of a sudden, he's had a good week.
Yeah, I think he's a little boomer bust this week, possibly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think he's probably Stanton's favorite target, which is good, but not this week. Again, anybody this week when they're playing in Seattle. I think Seattle's defense is on the uptick. People have been kind of pooping on them all year, but they're kind of they're working their way back toward not what they were last year, but they're certainly improving as the year goes on.
Still not a good fantasy defense.
Right.
Yeah, I think
I do mean, and I think their pass defense is what I mean when I say they're getting better.
Yeah.
They're getting better in that department at least.
I would agree with that. So let's move on to this week's picks. First off, I'll start off with Isaiah Crowell. Sorry. I always want to say Crowell at Atlanta. Ben Tate's gone. That means it's just Crowell and West at this point. He had a great first matchup, or this will be a great first matchup, I should say, in this two-headed rotation now. Over 23 points per game to running backs the Atlanta Falcons are giving up. I just think they run with Crowell. You saw him fumble last week, like we mentioned in the bonus podcast Monday that Steve and I did. He was not punished for it, so I think they're going to stick with him this week. You could see it, pretty split, but it's not going to be split 3 ways now. It's just going to be split 2. So I think even, keep an eye on it as it gets close. It seems like every Sunday a report comes out as to who's going to be the starter. Run with that person, whether it's Crowell or West, but I think both of them could even put up decent numbers. And then next up, I have Jordan Matthews against the Titans. It is a bit tougher matchup. They give up 11th least to wide receivers, but he does seem to be the favorite target for Mark Sanchez. The Eagles are going to want to run the score up a little bit, and they probably will get the ground game going, but that opens things up through the air. And he has had a touchdown every game since Mark Sanchez has come in. So I like him this week. You could see him and Macklin both put up some decent numbers this week, but I do like him as a flex back end wide receiver too. So Joe, we'll start with you. What do you think of Crowell and Matthews?
Love the Crowell pick. I was somebody who held on to Crowell for weeks when he wasn't even doing anything because everything I read about him from their beat writers just said that he was the more talented runner of the 3. So I just kept holding on. And right when I was thinking about dropping him, he did what he did last week, and now Ben Tate is gone. So I'm really excited about that. And I agree that I think this is a dream matchup against Atlanta. And I think both him and West could have a big game this week. I mean, it was only a couple weeks ago where all 3 of them, including Tate, had over 10 points. So I think it could be really good for both of them going forward. And I love your Jordan Matthews pick. He's got 2 straight games of 100 yards, and no Eagles rookie has ever had 3 straight games of 100 yards or more. So I'd love to see that done
Well, that's not
this
good.
week. Why is that?
Because it's never happened.
Well, that means it's due. So I'd love to see it. But all the
Eagles are
reasons
due for a Super Bowl too, right?
Yeah, they're due. Yeah, I guess. Okay, then I am really low on Jordan Matthews. I'm gonna switch him. No way. No, but I like it. So I like both your picks this week.
For me, I agree with the Crowell pick. I actually got him on a waiver wire this week, which was a good thing because I got him, and then Ben Tate got cut, so that works out. I think Crowell. We went over this a lot during the bonus podcast, like Adam mentioned, but I think he's the better runner, and I think he'll take his opportunities and go with it. He catches the ball out of the backfield and runs. He's a dynamic player, so I like him this week, and I actually like him going forward for the rest of the fantasy season, really. I'm going to disagree with Jordan Matthews. I have reasons why later during the low list. But just, I guess, to go over it quickly, I think the Eagles will do a little bit more running than throwing as far as that goes, and that's not the best for Jordan Matthews. And we can roll. Adam, do you have anything to add?
Nope.
No,
you can go right into
the only thing I'll add real quick.
I think he asked me, not you. But
I know, but I know that I wasn't going to get a chance, so I just spoke up. So I think it's funny because, Steve, I think I said the same thing for 2 or 3 weeks in a row and said, all right, this is the week they get shady going, so that's why I was down on Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
And each week they never got their running game going, so that's kind of why I'm still up on Jordan Matthews. But
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
My 2 high picks are fun. I have Keenan Allen first.
Are you sure these aren't your low picks?
Yeah, I swear I thought the exact same thing when I was reading them earlier.
Oh, you guys are great. I could have picked Malcolm Floyd here, who I also do like this week, by the way. If you have Malcolm Floyd, feel free to trot him out. But then I wouldn't have been able to brag if Keenan Allen hits. So he's going to score a touchdown this week because his numbers don't make any sense. And they haven't made any sense for the entire year. And this is as good a week as any to catch a touchdown because they're playing the Rams. So consider me high on Phillip Rivers, too, for our previous conversation. My second guy is Reggie. Which injury is next? Bush. I'm on the skinny branches here, guys. I try to pick people that aren't usually starters, so this is where I'm going.
Yeah, you nailed it on this one then.
Yeah, I really don't like Reggie Bush. Usually, this week the matchup is actually it's okay. It's good at least. The Patriots, for as good as they are as a team, they give up points to running backs fantasy wise. And the Lions are going to be losing in this game just because the Patriots are hot right now. So they're going to be throwing it a lot, which the Lions usually like to do. And that's Reggie Bush. So at least for me, this is a Reggie Bush game rather than a Joique Bell game. So for that reason, I think Reggie Bush comes off injury, and if you have him in a flex spot, you might be rewarded here. So I guess we'll start the firing squad with Adam. Go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and I'll disagree with Reggie Bush. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt with Keenan Allen because I do like Phillip Rivers to bounce back a little this week, so he very well could have a good week. Reggie Bush, maybe I'll start if are there leagues where you start 4 running backs?
Could be.
Okay.
No, never mind.
All right, I'll start him in a 4 running back league. Other than that, I just don't trust him yet. I mean, Steve said it's the skinniest of limbs. That thing is probably about to break. I mean, including Reggie Bush himself, about to break. But I got to see him play a full healthy game first before I'm going to throw him in there, especially against New England. I think New England could actually go up kind of big on these guys, and they're just going to be trying to look downfield the whole game. I actually am a little down on many Lions people this week in general, so Reggie Bush is kind of at the bottom of that barrel. But yeah, I could see Keenan Allen.
Well,
go for it, Joe.
I don't know. You know, the reasons you gave for Keenan Allen are 100% true. I mean, the St. Louis Rams, I think, are like 4th worst against the pass, I believe, or against receivers. So, yeah, I mean, so it should happen, but, he's had matchups that were good before, and he's just not putting it together. So I don't have another argument other than I just don't think he's going to do it. I don't think Keenan Allen is that good anymore. And Reggie Bush, I think he's a good flex. I think he's a solid flex. I kind of like what the Lions did last week, holding him out until he was 100% healthy. But I don't think even at flex, I got to be pretty desperate to put him in there. I got to be hurting at running back pretty bad. So I kind of agree with Adam a little more with the running back 4, but if I have to put him at my flex, I'm not terribly upset with that.
Running back 4, that kind of thing.
Joe, you want to go into your highs?
Yeah, so I picked 2 people that are down on a lot of people's list. I went with Shane Vereen and Brian Hoyer. So let's start with Shane Vereen. He's playing Detroit, and I really do think Jonas Gray, as well as he did last week, I just think that Detroit is too good against the run. And if they're not able to run the ball, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And when the Patriots are throwing, Shane Vereen is the running back that's in the game and will benefit from the most catching out of the backfield. So I think this could be really good, especially if you're a PPR. I looked at last week when the Cardinals played the Lions. The Lions gave up more receiving yards to the Cardinals running backs than they did rushing yards. So based on that, I just kind of think that the running back receiving yards could be better, which Shane Vereen will benefit from. And then Brian Hoyer at Atlanta. My sole reason, Josh Gordon is back. They're going to try to get him a ball.
It's a pretty good reason.
Yeah, Atlanta is not that great of a defense, so it's that simple. And I recently just saw a stat on from Grantland that said that Hoyer ranks second in the league in both completions and yards on passes that travel 20 yards or more in the air, trailing only Andrew Luck.
I guess that's
a good stat.
Good stat.
That's a pretty good stat. Now, I can't take any credit for it. That's out of Grantland.com, but based on that, I think they're going to try to hit.
Where do you find these websites? I've never even heard of that.
Listen, I'm deep in my research. Listen, I should be doing work at work, but no, I'm all fantasy all day. So hopefully my boss is not listening to this podcast.
I don't think anybody listens at this
Yeah,
point.
probably not anybody listening. But so anyway, so I just think that Brian Hoyer, the one website I saw, he's ranked down close to 20. So I'm not telling you he's top 5 this week, but it wouldn't shock me if he's a top 12 quarterback this week.
Yeah, I could see that.
So let's start with Adam.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see him being a top 12, maybe a back end QB1. I'd start him probably over his opposite, Matt Ryan. And Shane Vereen, I will agree, if it's a PPR, if it's not a PPR, benching both Patriots running backs this week. Steve?
Yeah, Vereen falls under why the hell not, just because Jonas Gray ran for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, and it's the Patriots, so they'll completely switch what they did last week and make it happen this week. So I think Shane Vereen has a good chance, especially I like that stat you gave where the Cardinals gave up, or the Lions gave up more receiving yards than rushing yards to running backs. So that's a good one. That certainly says Shane Vereen. Hoyer, I'm not too sure on, just because I haven't looked at his numbers too closely, just because he never really crossed my mind as a fantasy quarterback.
He was way down low in the list. You didn't get that far.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, he certainly has the opportunity.
It's a bold pick.
Yeah, it's definitely is. He's thrown for 300 yards twice, approached it 2 other times. So it certainly has the opportunity. We know Atlanta's defense isn't good. So if you're looking for options and you want to take a flyer, I don't see anything wrong with Brian Hoyer being one of your flyers.
So let me ask you guys something. Matt Ryan or Brian Hoyer this week?
I'd go Brian Hoyer.
I think I'd go Matt Ryan at home.
I think I'd still stick Matt Ryan, but I think the fact that we kind of had to think with it, that we had to think about it for a second.
Way to stick to your guns, Joe.
No, I told you I don't think Brian Hoyer is top 5. I think he could sneak into the top 12. I just don't think he's as low as some of the sites I saw him have ranked like close to 20.
I will say this: aren't you 0-1 with Brian Hoyer on your high list?
I don't know if I've ever had him on my high list. Have I?
Yeah, I think you did against the Jags.
Well, that's possible.
They're like one of their few losses this year. Yeah. Let's go into our lows from last week. Keenan Allen, I got a green on because he got 6.3. We already talked about him. Russell Wilson, I got a red. God damn it, only because of the rushing yards that Steve had pointed out as to why he keeps him in.
Put a running quarterback on a low list.
Without his rushing yards, I know this is really, I mean, that's half his game, but he would only have 15 points.
You could only say that 6 times this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for Peyton Manning's passing yards, he wouldn't be that good of a quarterback. So.
How'd that work out last week? Actually, I think Peyton still had like 18 points. Anyway, back to Russell Wilson. Hey, I took a shot. He plays the Cards this week. I guess I learned my lesson. I mean, 8 carries, 71 yards. He threw for 178 and 2, which is normally about 15 points, but gets an extra 7 freebie points for no freaking reason. So whatever, I'll ride him.
Yeah, I mean, he threw for 172 yards against the Giants and scored 30 points. So
yeah,
because he ran for 107 and a touchdown. He's a running back.
That'll happen. So he's a running back who passes. So Steve, you want to just go right into your lows then from last week?
Sure. Yeah, I picked both Lions running backs. I guess it was kind of a half and half, so it was a yellow. Joique Bell ended up with over 10 points. The Lions total, they ran for 87 yards. Joique Bell ran for 85 of it, and they had 54 receiving yards total. Joique Bell had 30 of that, so he certainly played better than Theo Riddick did. They combined for 14.1. I guess we kind of covered it a little bit already with the Patriots running back situation, but I guess this week it'll be either Joique Bell or Reggie Bush. So I guess we can play an either-or game with you guys and see which one you prefer this week at New England.
I mean, if I had to pick, I'd go Bell, but I honestly don't really like either of them this week, like I kind of said before.
That's fair. Either or neither. That's a fair game.
Yeah.
What up, Joe?
Yeah, I think I'd take Bell this week.
Fair enough. And then my other guy's on bye this week, so pretty much done there. But it was Martavis Bryant. He cooled off. I hit on the low. He had 2 catches for 11 yards, which is pretty much what he's going to do. And it's what he would have done last week if he didn't catch an 80-yard touchdown, or 2 weeks ago if he didn't catch an 80-yard touchdown. So that's he's going to be a boomer bust guy going forward, I think. But he's on bye this week. So unless you guys have anything to add about Martavis Bryant, then Joe, you can go right ahead.
Yeah, okay, so I went in, I had Andre Ellington last week on the low list, 19 carries, only 42 yards. He got called out by his coach about having to do more, so he didn't have many points. He's got the Seahawks this week, and because of that, I added him on my low list this week. So I'll just talk about that now. So as much as I'm a huge fan of him and an owner in a couple of leagues, I just think against Seattle and the way he's been playing lately just doesn't seem like he'll doesn't fare well, I don't think. So I think this Andre Ellington against the Seahawks this week is another low pick for me. And my other low I had last week was Mark Sanchez. He had less than 16 points. I thought maybe I'd get a green light for that. But maybe it was the amount of passing yards, 346 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he did have 2 INTs and 2 fumbles, and that's probably why I got the yellow.
I didn't do the color codings this week, Joe. Okay,
yeah, so that's okay.
Yeah, probably... he threw for 346 and had about 300 in garbage time. So.
Yeah, so but he does play the Titans this week, so I do think I like him a lot more this week. I think he's just one of those situational quarterbacks, plug in and play depending on the matchup. And I could, especially after the embarrassment last week, it would not surprise me if Sanchez puts up huge numbers this week. So
Steve has him on his low list, so I guess we'll talk about that in a second. So let's go right into our this week low list. I have DeAndre Hopkins against the Bengals. The Bengals give up the second least to wide receivers this year. This is his second week with new quarterback Ryan Mallett. He had 4 for 80 last week, which is actually pretty solid for the first week, but I think it's going to take some time to develop that chemistry there. This Cincinnati Bengals secondary is not a good team to have to do it against, so I'm a little low on him this week. I accidentally put Coby Fleener on here, but I'm actually high on him, so I'm going to skip over that and go right into the person who I actually am low on would be Golden Tate against the Patriots. Now, these guys busted on me a couple minutes ago before the show because this is one of the Boston Herald, I guess, beat writers, thinks that it would be a good idea if the Patriots had Brandon Browner cover Calvin Johnson and Darrelle Revis man Golden Tate. And apparently Roto World agrees because Browner is more of a stiff upright guy and Tate is more of a quick shifty guy. So they think they should have that go in that way. So if that is the case and Revis is on him. But like I said, I really don't like the Lions much at all this week, and I'm going to give you a quick I know we had talked about, the Chiefs last week covering the spread against the Seahawks or beating the Seahawks, whatever. Well, the Patriots opened up at a 3.5 favorite. They're now a 7-point favorite. So I think that could be a little bit of a blowout there in Foxborough. So I don't like many. I guess if I had to pick anybody on the lines to start, it'd be Calvin Johnson and maybe Matt Stafford. But other than that, I really don't like many people on that team this week. So, Joe, we'll start with you. DeAndre Hopkins and Golden Tate.
Yeah, I think with Mallett at quarterback, it just may be tough to trust Hopkins right now. So I agree with that.
And Golden Tate, just like you said, I think it could be a blowout this week. And I think that because of that, in some garbage time, you may see him get some more points. So I'm not so sure about the Golden Tate, especially I think they're just a passing team. Matt Stafford throws it a ton. So I think he just had a down week, and I think he could bounce back this week.
For me, DeAndre Hopkins, you picked the 2 wide receivers that are on my team, by the way, that are I'm looking for in my flex spot. So
I may have done that on purpose.
Yeah. DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is not a bad play because Mallett has a rocket for an arm. I didn't know that until last week, but DeAndre Hopkins is kind of their deep threat. So I kind of like, he might be able to get behind the defense, and one big play is all you need to have a good week. So I don't mind DeAndre Hopkins this week. Golden Tate is a better idea as a low. I don't know what to talk about with this beat writer guy. It probably is a good idea, but the fact that that's your reasoning that he thought it was a good idea is pretty funny.
What about the spread? Come on, I gave you backup evidence.
Oh, spread's good, yeah. Not that we condone betting on this site.
No, but we are. By the way, we are. I think 2-0 now when mentioning it.
Oh yeah, we're good at it. I think it's a good idea. That I don't know that for whatever reason, Detroit's offense doesn't seem to be clicking at the moment. So I don't think Golden Tate is a bad idea to have on a low list. But I do believe this Browner thing that he's bigger. But I still think they're going to put Revis on Calvin Johnson because it's Calvin Johnson. So I think Tate has a chance to break out and have a bunch of targets this week, and he usually catches his targets. I think he leads the league in third down catches. So
yeah, if I had to pick between the two for your flex answer, Steve, I think I would probably go Tate. I think he has a better chance of putting up more points.
Yeah, I would agree with that, I think. So for my lows this week, I have Chris Ivory first. They're at Buffalo. Buffalo is actually a really good team against the run this year. And the Jets' backfield is pretty unpredictable. You never really know. Even though Ivory is better, which we've been saying for about 10 weeks now, Ivory is better than Chris Johnson. But the Jets still make their backfield unpredictable. Plus, they might not even play the game considering Buffalo has 6 feet of snow. 6 feet.
That's more than my height.
Yeah. 6 feet of snow. So they might not play the game, so you might want to avoid the Jets and Bills at this point. But I would avoid the Jets' backfield if at all possible. Maybe Percy Harvin is the only Jet total that you would play. But even at this point, like I said, 6 feet of snow. You try to avoid the Jets if you can.
12 inches more than 5 feet.
That sure is. And then Mark Sanchez, who I have on my low list, which was alluded to earlier. I think it's more of the inconsistency than anything else. Like I said, he scored a bunch of his points in garbage time last week. I think he's a matchup play going forward, pretty much one of those streaming quarterback options. This is not a good matchup. Tennessee is actually pretty good against the pass. They give up third most points to running backs and a 10th least points to quarterbacks. So I think the Eagles are going to try to get ahead early, and they're going to run to win this game. Even though we've been saying that for a while, I think this is the week that they do it. So I have Sanchez and Ivory on a low list. Where are you at, Adam?
I agree with Ivory. And by the way, this just in, Pro Football Talk, League Source tells Pro Football Talk, the time slot for Sunday's Jets-Bills game could be moved due to snow. So looking
Tuesday.
possibly Sunday night to Tuesday night, somewhere in there. But either way, Buffalo's really good against the run, like you said. So it doesn't matter. Forget that there's 5 feet plus 12 inches of snow out there. Not a good matchup. And Mark Sanchez, I tend to actually agree with you, though I think the Eagles will win this game and it won't be close. But that being said, they still did manage 20 points, I think it was, against the Packers. And Sanchez only put up 15 because of all the turnovers. And Macklin and Matthews still managed to have good games. So just because I'm high on Matthews, I don't have to be high on Sanchez. So I'm actually going to agree with both your picks.
Sweet.
Yeah, I like the Ivory pick. I think, despite the, as Adam puts it, 5 feet, 12 inches of snow, Buffalo's a really good defense. So I think without the snow, Chris Ivory would have been a good pick as well. And I will disagree with Sanchez. I do think that they're going to run the ball a lot. I think the opportunity is there. I just think that I think Chip Kelly is just going to get this offense rolling. I would not be surprised from a big day from Shady. And not that Sanchez is going to throw 350 yards, but I do think he'll get 2 touchdowns at least, 250, which will be a pretty solid day. So I'll disagree with Sanchez. I just think they're going to be able to do whatever they want against the Titans. So we'll go into my low list. I already talked about Andre Ellington, so I won't spend any more time. But just once again, he plays Seattle, and he just hasn't been stepping up as coach wants him to in the last few weeks. My other guy, I'm going with Julio Jones against Cleveland. Looks like he's going to probably match up against Joe Hayden for most of the day, who's one of the top cornerbacks in the league. And Matt Ryan has just not played very well behind an injured O-line. His dropbacks have been only about 3 and 5 steps, so he hasn't had a lot of time to throw the ball. And when he is taking the deep dropbacks, he's getting hit and sacked. And Julio's strength is getting behind the defense, and he just hasn't been able to do that because Matt Ryan does not have the time to throw the ball. I think I saw that he has not had a touchdown since week 3. So I just think this is, he's due for a bounce back in a big game. I just don't think this is it. So Adam, where are you at on Ellington and Julio Jones?
Ellington, I will. That's a tough one. I think you might earn yourself a yellow for Ellington. I wouldn't put him on a low, but I wouldn't necessarily put him too high. I think maybe like 10, 11 points. Julio Jones, I have a tough time ever benching, but I mean, your reasons are good. But I'm still going to play him, even if I don't expect him to get more than like 9 points.
Yeah, I think you'd have to be pretty stacked at receiver to actually bench him.
I think both of these picks are fantastic. I think Ellington, I think anybody in Seattle, I don't know, I'm still on that in Seattle thing, but I'm not sure how well that any of them are going to do. As far as the Cardinals go, they're due for a loss, and I think that it'll come this week, and it might come handily. And Julio Jones, I would not start this week. I do happen to be stacked at wide receiver. And I would start Golden Tate and DeAndre Hopkins over Julio Jones this week.
Wow.
You said it. The matchup is just poor, and Joe Hayden's proven to be a shutdown corner at this point, and that's who he's going to see. And the offensive line woes are real. So you can put it down for Golden Tate and DeAndre Hopkins to each score more than Julio Jones this week for me.
Writing it down right now. Did you know, by the way, there's a Julian Jones on the Falcons, another wide receiver?
Oh, good for him.
Found that out.
I'm a co-host of a podcast. Of course I knew that.
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, Ben Beck from Next Level, inviting you to join myself and Adam Gorey every Sunday for another episode of The Showcast. We bring you the best stories in pop culture, the newest stories in film and television, as well as movie reviews, what's going to be released in DVD, as well as coming to the box office for the weekend, and much, much more. All you have to do is search Next Level Radio under the iTunes Store and subscribe, or simply go to our website, www.nextlevelradioonline.com, and you can find our current shows as well as all of our past shows right there on the website. So we hope you join us every Sunday for another new episode of The Showcast.
This is Kevin Bigley from Tyrant, and you're listening to Next Level Radio.
He was a no one, a 0-0. Now he's a hunter. He's a hero.
Prime time fantasy football's 0 to hero.
0 to hero, just like that.
All right, let's start off with last week's 0 to hero results. I had Bishop Sankey. Got myself a yellow, though I did get correct that he would get his first double-digit total of the year, even if it is only by half a point. Plays the Eagles this week. Yeah, I mean, you're not expecting much from him. RB3, probably just ahead of Bush in the RB4 slot.
RB4.
Steve, we'll start with you. What do you think of Sankey?
I don't think Sankey is a play this week. I just don't. And the Eagles talked about how good his feet were, so that keeps coming back to haunt everyone ever. But I don't think he's a good play this week.
Joe?
Nope, bench him.
All right. Steve, you're low, or you're 0 to hero?
Yeah, I hit on mine. AJ Green ended up with 127 yards, 6 catches on 8 targets, and a touchdown. I think he had 80 yards and a touchdown on 1 drive. So that kind of sealed it for me. Scored 18.7 this week. They're at the Texans this week. So, Adam, where are you at with AJ Green?
Start him. Wide receiver 1.
Joey?
Agree.
Yeah, I think you're going to start him every week. It was just I got lucky that he didn't do that well the week before.
Yeah. My 0 to hero, I should say, I had Rashad Jennings, who would come off an injury, and it wasn't for a lack of carries. I mean, he got 18 carries. I did read one report that they were going to try to limit him, but he really he wasn't limited at all. He just went against a really tough defense.
He just did terribly.
Excuse me. Yeah, he just didn't have a great day. So, but the thing that I found promising is the amount of carries he got. He was involved in the game. The only thing I was a little disappointed with, the very last drive of the game, they put Andre Williams in, and it was a passing situation. It was, they were dropping back because they had to try to get down to win the game, and Andre Williams actually caught a pass, and I'm not really sure why Rashad Jennings wasn't in. He wasn't nicked up, wasn't hurt. But I'll go into my 0 to hero picks for this week because I put Rashad Jennings on there again against Dallas. I still think that because of the amount of carries he's seeing, he's due to have a big day. The Giants gave him a full workload, and the Giants just Dallas just isn't as good as the 49ers against the run. So I'm picking them this week to be my 0 to hero.
Boy. Jeez, I don't even know what to say here. They're using him, so that's a good sign, like you said. Dallas has a little bit better of a defense than I think people believe, and I think they could get up pretty quickly, and the Giants might have to look elsewhere other than the run. But even still, Jennings would be involved in the passing game. So, and plus, honestly, when it comes to divisional games, everything, it doesn't completely go out the window, but some stuff goes out the window, and anything is honestly possible. So, yeah, I'll agree, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Did you just talk yourself into it?
No, he was talking to himself for quite a while there.
Because you started one way and really came around. I like it, though.
I wanted you to think I was going to disagree, but I pulled a curveball on you and agreed.
Excellent.
Yeah, I like the Jennings pick a lot. This kind of game has the Giants winning all over it at home. It's the division game. This is the kind of games that
only a 3.5 point dog.
Eli Manning does something stupid and wins the game somehow. And we're getting close to December, so that's Tony Romo time. Oh, home dog at night. The Giants are going to win this game, guys. So I actually do. I like the Jennings pick. I think that they have a good chance of winning, and Jennings will be an integral part of that. He'll need at least a touchdown for them to beat Dallas, I think.
I think it'll be close. I don't know if I see the Giants winning, but it's possible. Didn't they play them pretty close last time?
Yes.
I guess I'll go into my 0 to hero since Joe went off the map and decided to go first. Vincent Jackson at Chicago. The Bears give up the second most touchdowns through the air. McCown's facing his old team. Evans and Jackson, I think both will put up some solid weeks. I think Evans, Jackson, McCown all having good weeks this week. So Joe, because then Steve can roll into his pick. Joe, what do you think of Vincent Jackson?
Yeah, I think just because he's playing the Bears, I think that could be pretty good. But obviously, I still like Mike Evans
more
a little bit.
I thought that was the obvious pick. So
absolutely. I agree that Mike Evans.
Plus, he wasn't a 0 last week.
That's also true.
And that's true. He wasn't the 0. So my point of just saying is that out of the two receivers, I do like Mike Evans better. But against Chicago, there's no reason they both can't have big days.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the same thing. I think there'll be a lot of points scored in this game, and that'll be because Chicago's defense stinks. Because we know that the Bears are better than Tampa Bay, but Chicago's defense might keep Tampa Bay in this thing. So I think Vincent Jackson certainly has a chance to score a bunch of points. My guy this week is going to be Kaepernick. They are at home against Washington. He wasn't the best last week in a win against a bad NFC East defense and the Giants, but I think he'll do better this week against an NFC East defense that is worse, who is Washington. They give up the fourth most points to quarterbacks, and Kaepernick has that running ability that I like so much in Russell Wilson. Kaepernick also has that, obviously. I don't know. I do the quarterback rankings, obviously, but I don't know that I'll rank him in the top 5, but I think that Kaepernick has the ability to put up top 5 numbers, and that'll certainly put him in the hero category. So, Adam, where do you stand on Colin Kaepernick?
I'm going to disagree. I think I disagreed with you last time. Maybe I agreed. I don't remember. But anyway, he hasn't scored over 20 points since week 6, and that was only the second time he's done it. So, I mean, he was projected to have a good week last week, only put up 14. He's just, I don't know what's happened to him this year. He's just had a falling off. So I'm going to disagree. I think he gets probably under 18.
Yeah, I'm going to actually go ahead and agree. I think Washington right now is just
wrong.
Not only they're a bad football team, you've got Deshaun Jackson sending out Instagram pictures that basically calls out his entire team. You got RG3 who basically kind of called out his entire team. You got the coach basically saying my entire team sucks. It's just they're a mess down there. And when I looked at the quarterbacks that the Redskins have faced,
it's the best call he's made all year.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and they've really only faced one quarterback that is known as a runner, and it was Russell Wilson, and he ran for 122 yards against Washington. So because of the running ability, I think you could see him get over 20 points this week. So I actually like that pick.
Oh, look at you. Let's go into Don't Buy the Hype then real quick. John Brown I got a green on. We already talked about him. So, Steve, let's talk about Josh McCown.
Sure, I got a red on Josh McCown. And he's proved me wrong a couple times, so I won't be putting him on a low list anymore. This week they're playing the Bears. We kind of alluded to it. You guys like Josh McCown this week against the Bears?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. All
right,
top 10, I think, for me.
That could be possible for sure. Go for it, Joe.
I had C.J. Anderson. Did not have many carries, so 29 yards, but he really played a big role in the passing game, which I didn't expect. 10 targets, 8 receptions, 86 yards. So he had over 10 points because of that. So going against the Dolphins this week, Dolphins have a solid running defense, but nothing great. I actually like C.J. Anderson this week against the Dolphins.
Yeah, he's all that's left. So, and actually it's funny because the Broncos are at home. They opened up at an 8.5 favorite. It went down to a 7 favorite. So it's actually leaning a little Dolphins way. Yeah, but I still like C.J. Anderson this week.
If you looked at some of the Dolphins games, they played even some of the better teams really tough.
They destroyed the Chargers.
They have a good defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They have a good defense. And their offense, you're right. And then their offense, they've been clicking a little bit too. And Lamar Miller's playing a little better this year. So, but I do like C.J. Anderson because exactly what you just said, Adam. That's all he has left.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I picked up Juwan Thompson this week, but that's kind of a cautionary play just in case Anderson somehow goes down as well. So I think Anderson will be the guy, and he'll have plenty of looks this week.
All right, let's talk about our picks for this week. I think all of them are pretty much layups, perhaps. I say that now. They're like we could get them wrong, but Jermaine Gresham at Houston for me. 6 least points to tight ends, Houston Texans. He only had 3 targets last week. One of his touchdowns, we talked about this on the bonus podcast. He fumbled into the end zone and just happened to recover it. Joe, we'll start with you. What do you think of Gresham this week after getting 2 touchdowns on his only 2 catches of 3 targets?
If you put any tight end on here other than probably Graham, Gronkowski, and Thomas, I'll probably agree with you.
I think I don't think I'll put Thomas on here.
No, not this week. But I just think right now the tight end spot is so bad. It's just so unpredictable each week. So, sure. He'll be bad this week.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to go with what Joe said.
Sure. Okay, well, let's go on to yours then.
I have Michael Floyd. Speaking of layups, he caught 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, which happened to be his only 2 catches. And the first one was an arm punt by Drew Stanton that he just somehow came down with. But we talked a little bit about John Brown. They're at Seattle this week. I'm not going to start him this week, so that means I'm going to put him on my Don't Buy the Hype list.
Yeah, well, actually, I heard that Darrelle Revis is going to cover Larry Fitzgerald, so Michael Floyd. No,
might be a good idea.
No, I'm not playing him either. I actually tried to see if anyone would bite and buy him a little high since he put up 17 points, but even the idiots in our fantasy league aren't buying that. So, I'm not playing him, Joe.
Yeah, you actually texted me about that, and I laughed about that trade offer. So,
like I said, the idiots in our league didn't even bite.
He texted me too.
Like I said, the idiots in our league.
I agree with everything you said, but the one thing I wanted to point out, I've never heard the term arm punt in my life, and I'm going to use it as often as possible going forward. So, but no, I agree with you. Against Seattle, I'm not starting any of really anybody this week from the Cardinals. So I'll go into my Don't Buy the Hype. I went ahead and went with Jonas Gray. He had over 200 yards, but against Detroit, I just think they're a tough running team, and I think that there's going to be a lot of people who are excited to get Jonas Gray into their lineups, and they are going to be sad come Sunday night. Long term, I do like Jonas Gray. I think that he could be what Stephen Ridley was a few years ago, minus the fumbling problems. But just this week, I think as I had him in my high list, I'd actually rather start Shane Vereen over Jonas Gray this week.
Yeah, I would agree. Everything you just said, I like him long term, but it is a tough run defense. And if either of the running backs are going to do well, I would say it would be Shane Vereen because of the PPR value.
Yeah, we did mention it when you had Vereen on another list that I like your pick of Vereen, which kind of in turn means I'd I don't like Jonas Gray this week, which means I also like this pick. So that works.
So let's go on to, since the trade deadline is fast approaching, let's go on to our buy low, sell high. Steve, do you want to run down the names, and I guess we'll just say whether we would buy low or sell high on these guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or did you have in mind what they would be?
No, I kind of mixed them in just to see, just so everybody wouldn't, oh yeah, I agree with that or don't agree with that. So
yeah, take it away.
So everybody can give an honest opinion.
Take it away.
So first guy is, and these are all going to be people that, these aren't waiver wire guys. These are guys that we kind of went for the bigger names here. The first one is Marshawn Lynch out in Seattle. So I guess, Adam, go ahead and tell me if you would buy low or sell high on
Buy low.
Marshawn Lynch.
Buy low. I mean, they're talking maybe he's not going to be around next year. I think he's going to prove as to why they should keep him around next year.
Interesting. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I agree. I think it just seems like this as the season goes on, he's getting stronger and stronger, and he could be the kind of running back that wins you a league. So if you have depth, go out and get him.
I don't know if you can call it low, but yeah, buy him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we could do buy or just call it buy or sell, because I think I would actually sell high just because of the matchups he has coming. So when you look at things,
you're a
things
Lynch
like
fanatic too, so that's
I
surprising
sure
to hear.
Yeah, I'm not selling them. I have them. I'm not selling them, but
what do you want for him? I'll give you
a
third round draft pick.
Yep, we'll take it. And as long as I can, I'll give you Reggie Bush back too. I'll give you Marshawn Lynch and Reggie Bush for a third round draft.
No, you're gonna have to throw in something now, like a 10th round.
Yep, that's fair. The second guy on the list is going to be Arian Foster here. So, are we going to buy low or sell high on Arian Foster?
I guess I would. I actually think I would sell on him because they're talking about when he comes back, even having Alfred Blue still split carries because Blue's been doing so well. So I think I would sell him.
Yeah, I agree. His injury concerns me, so I would sell.
I would sell too, and I think this is the epitome kind of sell high, just because. He's done really well when he's played, but he's got a lot of injury concerns. So I think that's a good pick by everybody here. Next, another running back, Frank Gore. Are we going to buy low or sell high?
I'm selling him as well. I think they're just going to start getting Hyde more involved.
Yeah, his last 2 weeks, Frank Gore's actually had a two pretty solid weeks. However, I don't think you're going to be able to sell him for anything. I think I'm going to actually stay put on Frank Gore. If I have him, I'm going to hold on to him.
That's fair. I think that I would look to sell on Frank Gore as well, just because of the possibility of Carlos Hyde, like Adam mentioned. So
yeah, you don't want to run into that mess in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you don't. I just don't think you're going to be able to get what he really is worth. So I think I'd rather hold on to him than risk.
You could get Reggie Bush.
Yeah, I'm going to hold on to him then. I'm going to hold on to. Yeah.
And staying in San Francisco, next on our list is going to be Anquan Bolden.
Yeah, definitely sell on Bolden. I can't trust any of the Niners wide receivers. So if I can get something for Bolden, I'm doing it.
Agree. Sell.
Yeah, I think you can, kind of get what you can on Bolden, and maybe even buy just because of their matchups that he has going forward aren't too bad. I don't think going forward. So. The next guy we've talked about a couple times, LaShawn McCoy. You're going to buy low or sell high?
I'm buying. I actually tried to buy him, and it didn't work. But yeah, I'm buying if I can. If the owner isn't asking too much for him, I'm buying him just because, for the fact that, you could have a guy who was going, first, second, third overall in your RB2 slot for, a pretty decent price. I mean, the upside there is pretty obvious. I think you can count on him getting you 8-9 points most weeks, and with the possibility of exploding and getting you like 18 or 19 a couple weeks in there. So I'd buy.
I'm selling. Earlier in the year I said buy high. We're going into week 12, and he's been average at best. And if the name alone and the fact that he was drafted in 1, 2, or 3 can get you something that can actually provide you with points in the playoffs, I'll take it. So I'm selling LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah, I'm all in on the buy here. So I guess I fall in Adam's camp that his matchups are getting better, and it's gonna come eventually. You put him in the Keenan Allen category for me anyway. So
that's not good to hear, Adam. He just said LaShawn McCoy is basically Keenan Allen.
Yeah, well, except he's a lot better.
Bad news bears.
A couple Cardinals package here in the buy low sell high with Michael Floyd and Andre Ellington. So you don't have to pick the same for both. Obviously, I just put them in the same category because they're Cardinals. So Where are you guys at on these two?
Yeah, I'd sell. I feel like I'm saying sell for a lot of these guys. I would sell Floyd. I would probably do what Joe did with Gordon, sit put on Ellington, maybe buy him. I don't think I'd be selling him. I think I'm okay riding him into the playoffs, but Floyd I'd be selling.
Floyd, unfortunately, as Adam already pointed out, he couldn't even give him away. So if you can sell him, maybe somebody will like the name, or if you're in a keeper league and somebody wants to keep him from next year, I would try to sell him. I don't think you'd be able to. But yeah, I'm saying buy Ellington. Even though he hasn't been great, he's been rather consistent over the year, and he's still a top 10 or 15 back in most scoring leagues, which, right now consistency is probably a good thing. So I'd say go out and buy him. But if you're able to get him before this week, I'd put him on your bench this week against Seattle, but go out and buy him.
Yeah, I think Ellington is a great buy candidate after this week. If you happen to have the trade deadline extended to next week, I think Ellington will not do well this week, and I think that he could be a great buy low candidate at that point, because there'll be a couple weeks in a row where he hasn't done well. Floyd, I don't think that I would go after. That would be the sell category, but I'm not sure what you can get for him, because John Brown is probably the favorite target of Drew Stanton at this point. The next on our list, another receiver in Reggie Wayne. Buying low or selling high?
I guess I would buy, only because I think he can do better than he's been doing. So I think I would buy low.
Nah, I don't really know where I'm at with him. I think T.Y. Hilton's the guy there. So I think if you could sell and get something in return, that'd be great. I just don't know how much you'd be able to get. So I think I'm probably going to hold pat on him.
I'm going to buy on him. Their matchups are good for the rest of the year. So I'm buying low on Reggie Wayne, and I think that he has the opportunity to have a lot of points coming his way in the next couple weeks because of the matchups. And another receiver here, DeAndre Hopkins. Buying low or selling high?
I'm going to sell. I think you've seen his production just gradually decrease as the season went. So I think he might have another couple good games, but talking matchups, I don't think he has very good matchups down the rest of the way. So I think I would sell.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think I'm selling.
I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna go the opposite, just because
I'll sell him to you.
Okay. Well, you can't, because I have him.
I think I have him in the podcast league.
Okay, well, that's fair. Then I'll take him. I'm gonna buy on this one. I like the Mallet connection. I think I'm a little bit more into the Mallet connection than you guys are. So I'm gonna believe in that, and I'd buy low if I could. I don't know how low you can buy, but I would buy low. And then finally, we have a tight end in Antonio Gates. Buy low, sell high.
I think I'm gonna buy low. I think with the way tight ends are, he could be a viable top 10 tight end the rest of the season. I mean, if Phillip Rivers is going to try and get his game back on track, I think what he's missing is finding Antonio Gates when they get into the red zone. So I think I would buy low.
Yeah, I'm buying low because I don't think there's any other tight end in his little class, I guess you could say, because he's inconsistent. But I think he has the highest ceiling of all of those guys. So if you're going into your playoffs and you want a guy that can hit big and win you a week, so I'm buying on Antonio Gates.
Yeah, I would agree. Just because of the tight end class, like you said. And I think if you're in like a keeper league and guy's out of it and he happens to have Antonio Gates, I think you can get Antonio Gates really low, because that guy's probably trying to get whatever he can in a keeper league.
Like a late round pick, probably.
Exactly, and I think you might be able to get good value for Antonio Gates. So I would buy low on him.
I would agree with that. All right, so let's go into actually, let's real quick just mention a couple weather things to watch here, and we'll see if we can remember to do this each week. Obviously, Buffalo
portion of the show.
Buffalo and New York with all the snow, but Green Bay and Minnesota. Right now it's saying 37 degrees, 70% chance of rain, so monitor that as it gets closer to Sunday, especially for not really. I mean, you're not benching Aaron Rodgers if it rains, but whatever. Arizona at Seattle, 48 degrees, the forecast, 60% chance of rain, so keep an eye on that. And then Dallas at New York Giants, Sunday night, 50 degrees, 90% chance of rain, so keep an eye on that. Anyone thinking of starting Romo, I don't know why you would start Eli, but anyway, that I think plays into favor. I know we were talking about spreads, but I actually do think that plays in the favor of the Giants. So, Let's move on to our final segment of the night.
Prime Time Fantasy Football presents Dig It or Ditch It.
All right, we'll run through these real quick. Just a quick dig it or ditch it. First, let's start off with Kobe Fleener, top 5 tight end versus the Jags, and you can give me a dig or ditch whether Dwayne Allen plays or not.
I'm gonna ditch both, either or. Even though the tight ends are so bad, Kobe Fleener's too inconsistent, I think.
I'm buying it. I think I saw a stat today, so I can't be 100% sure on this, but I think I saw a stat after each of Andrew Luck's losses this year, he followed it up with a 300-yard game and at least 3 touchdowns. So based on that, why wouldn't Kobe Fleener get one of them? So let's go. I'm digging it.
Whether Joe's stat is correct or not, I'm going to dig it. And if Allen plays, I'll ditch it, but if he doesn't play, I'll dig it. We kind of talked about Jonas Gray already a little bit, but I think we know the answer, so we'll real quick go double-digit points against the Lions, Jonas Gray, Joe.
Ditch it.
Steve?
Yeah, I'll ditch that.
Yeah, I'm going to ditch it too. Latavius Murray, we didn't really talk about him. Is he a viable option against Kansas City? Joe, are you digging or ditching that?
I forget. Who does he play for?
The Raiders.
Ditch it.
I think I was set up on that one.
I'm going to dig it. Thursday night running, all that running back stuff, and I think he's going to get the most carries. I'll dig it.
Yeah, he already played the most snaps, and I think they were saying, now I don't know who they is, but I think somebody was saying that he's going to, Adam Kaplan on ESPN said he was going to have, he's at the very least going to split time with Darren McFadden. Now, apparently, Darrelle Revis is covering Golden Tate, so I mean take it for what it is. But I'm actually going to ditch it only because of the matchup. But I do think next week, I actually think if you're desperate at flex, I'll dig it. But if possible, I'll ditch it. I guess if that makes sense. Next up, Niall Davis, digging or ditching. He's actually usable in your flex spot against Oakland this week, Joe. Are you still there?
I'm still here. I'm digging that. I think Niles Davis, based on just the fact that he'll get some carries, they're relying on the run game a lot in Kansas City, which is really weird for Andy Reid team. Randy Reid. Oh, it's been a long day. I'm going to dig it. Let's just put it. I'm going to shut up and just dig it.
Steve?
I'm going to ditch it because Joe's argument was not convincing at all.
He doesn't even know who the coach is. What team does he play for again? I am going to... That's tough because I really want to dig it. I actually thought about putting him in my flex, but I'm going to ditch it just because you really don't know. I mean, last week he did well. I think the 2 weeks before that he did nothing. I would expect them to run a ton against Oakland because Oakland can't stop the run. I would expect both of them to actually put up okay numbers, but it's a Thursday night game, so I don't know what to expect. Let
me formulate a better argument real quick. Oakland sucks against the run. They're not going to give all of the carries to Charles this late in the season when they are setting up for a playoff run. Niall Davis will get a lot of carries. Put him in your flex. Dig it.
That was a better argument, but I'm still going to ditch it. But
Oakland's going to win, by the way.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Right, well, I just added a dig it or ditch it. Oakland is going to win.
Ditch it.
I ditch it.
Yeah, well.
They're 7-point dog. I think that's too much.
At night? Or what did you say? Dog at night? Is that what you said?
It might have been at night.
And they're at home?
I think they're playing it's West Coast. It could be the afternoon, actually.
Oh, okay.
Last one. Josh McCown, 20-plus points against his old team, the Bears. Joe, are you digging or ditching that?
Dig it.
Steve?
Yeah, I'll dig that. He's proved me wrong twice. I'm not going against him.
Yeah, I'm going to dig it as well. So any other last-minute dig or ditches before we wrap up?
Not a dig or ditch, but I was just combing through Twitter, and we didn't mention it. I'm not sure if you guys saw. Ben Tate was claimed by the Vikings today.
That's true. We did not mention it. Ditch it.
Yeah, ditch it.
So, I mean, I guess if you're a McKinnon owner, you were a little worried. I don't know what to think of that, honestly.
I wouldn't be worried.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Ben Tate's Ben Tate. So anyway, I think that about wraps it up. I want to remind you again, go to represent.com/nextlevel. Get yourself a Next Level t-shirt. Show your support. Keep us going through 2015 so we can bring you more primetime fantasy football, more showcast, and more celebrity guest spotlight interviews. Follow us on Twitter. Twitter is at Next Level Radio. Facebook is facebook.com/Next Level Radio Online. Go to nextlevelradioonline.com for our rankings. I'll get them up this week, like I did not last week. Follow Steve on Twitter at srichards31. Joe is at joeyweb32. I am at adamnextlevel. Check out Steve's blog, stephenrichards.net. I think that is about it. Oh, iTunes. So if you don't already subscribe on iTunes, just look for Next Level Radio and look for Primetime Fantasy Football. Make sure you subscribe to both. Steve, anything else before we get out of here?
The Sixers lost to the Celtics by 11. They might not win this year.
That's actually better than I expected.
Joe, anything else?
No, just good luck this weekend.
Okay, awesome. So we will see you guys for week number 13.
Thanks for listening to Primetime Fantasy Football. Send your questions into primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. And make sure to check out our weekly rankings, nextlevelradioonline.com, and go to the Primetime Fantasy Football tab. We'll post the link on Twitter and Facebook at NXT Level Radio or facebook.com/nextlevelradioonline.